All right, let's jump right in. We're going to dig into this really powerful idea about raising kids, and it comes from a text that's, get this, over 100 years old. But what's so wild is how its main metaphor feels like it was written for parents today. It's all about these hidden obstacles we might accidentally be putting in our own children's way. So first things first, we have to get on the same page with the language. When the author talks about an offense, they're not talking about hurt feelings or being insulted. No, they mean it literally, a stumbling block. Think about a toddler learning to walk. You'd clear everything off the floor, right? Every toy, every cord, you're removing the things that could trip them up. The author is basically asking us to do the same thing for our child's moral path. And this isn't just some friendly tip. The author puts some serious weight behind this. That phrase, woe to him, that's a heavy-duty warning. It's saying that leaving these stumbling blocks around for our kids isn't just a mistake, it's a profound failure of our job as parents and caregivers. So what exactly are these stumbling blocks? Well, the first one, and maybe the biggest one of all, is inconsistency. The whole idea here is that kids aren't just these empty vessels we pour rules into. They actually show up with a kind of built-in compass for what's right and wrong. And what's so fascinating is how the author backs this up. They point out that even if you say, naughty baby, to a tiny little kid, their face will flush and they'll look away. They haven't been lectured on morality, right? It's just in them, an innate conscience, a natural pull towards order. But, and this is a big but, that sense can get all scrambled and confused. And here's exactly how it happens. The text gives this perfect little example. A child sticks their hand in the sugar bowl. They know it's naughty. They might even give you that little look, the one, testing you. But the parent, instead of being firm, thinks it's kind of cute. They laugh. And right there, in that one little laugh, a giant stumbling block just got dropped in the child's path. The lesson they just learned? Naughty isn't a real rule, and no is negotiable. And this slide just lays out the long-term results so clearly. It's a stark contrast, isn't it? You start with this little person who gets the idea of must not, who looks to you to be the guide. But after years of inconsistency, they can turn into a kid who only operates on I want. The word duty means nothing, and you, the parent, are no longer a guide. You're just an obstacle in their way. Okay, so if inconsistency is the problem, what's the solution? This is where the author offers this really elegant and powerful shift in how we see our own role as a parent. Because that's the real question, isn't it? If your kid is just driven by I want, and you're just saying no, how do you get out of that constant, exhausting power struggle? And here's the answer. It's simple, but it's deep. The parent has to be governed by law too. You're not a dictator making up rules based on your mood. You're more like an administrator of a higher set of principles, of what's right and what's wrong. And that changes absolutely everything. It all comes down to what your child sees. When they realize that your no isn't just a personal whim, that you're also following the rules of must and ought, the dynamic shifts. They start to understand that you cannot let them do the wrong thing. Not because you're in a bad mood, but because it's just wrong. And that right there is how the power struggle starts to dissolve. Now, this whole idea of placing stumbling blocks, it goes way, way beyond just discipline and rules. The author really broadens the concept to cover pretty much every part of a child's life. The exact same principle applies. We can unintentionally trip our kids up in their physical health, their journey as thinkers, and of course, their emotional well-being. Let's break those down. First step, the most straightforward one, a child's physical health. And the author's really blunt about this. When a parent, whether they mean to or not, ignores basic health, like providing good food or making sure their kids get fresh air, they're putting a real physical stumbling block in their child's way. They're literally tripping them up on the path to a healthy life.
All right, next up is the mind. How on earth can we put a stumbling block there?
Oh, this one is so important. Those dreary, dawdling lessons that just drag on and go nowhere, they don't just waste time. They actively crush a child's natural curiosity. It's like putting their brain to sleep. This creates a lifelong dislike of learning, which is a massive stumbling block that can stop a child from ever realizing their full intellectual potential.
And that brings us to the last and maybe the most profound area where these offenses can happen. A child's inner world. Their heart, their feelings, their soul.
And to really drive this point home, the source shares a personal story. And I gotta tell you, it's absolutely heartbreaking, but it perfectly shows the lifelong scars that an emotional stumbling block can leave behind. The author is talking to a woman who starts her story with those words. Just think about that. My childhood was made miserable, and then listen to what caused it. The stumbling block was favoritism. The mother's love was like a spotlight, shining so brightly on one child that the other was left completely in the dark. And those last 5 words, I have never got over it. This wasn't a childhood phase she grew out of. It was a wound that never healed.
I mean, look at the damage. It didn't just hurt her as a kid, it soured her whole life. It made it hard for her to show love herself, and it totally wrecked her relationship with her brother. The mother, probably without ever meaning to, placed an obstacle in her daughter's emotional path that she could just never, ever clear.
And so this century-old text leaves all of us with a really personal challenge. It asks us to look at our own homes, our own patterns, our own hearts. It's not just about the big, obvious rules. It's about being consistent, it's about healthy habits, sparking curiosity, and making sure love is spread fairly. So it leaves us with this question. What unseen obstacles might be in your child's path? And what can you do today to clear the way?